As we gather here, this is the concluding remarks of the two-day conference. The concluding remarks intend to look at the future and decide on the future remarks. To conduct the panel, may I invite the chair of the panel, Dr. Sudipto Mundle, President of Cuts International. Along with Dr. Mundle, the panel will be graced with concluding remarks by Mr. Satish Kumar Reddy, who is a consultant for the Regional Cooperation and Trade Facilitation team with the Asian Development Bank. We have a panelist from Bhutan, Ms. Damchae, who is the founder and the Chief Executive Officer of Bhutan Association of Women Entrepreneurs. And we also have a panelist, Mr. David Ranz, who is the Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary, Bureau of South and Central Asian Affairs, U.S. Department of State. The final vote of thanks would be delivered by Mr. Bipul Chatterjee, Executive Director, Cuts International. To conduct this session, I will now hand over the moderating role to Dr. Sudipto Mundle. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam, and welcome everybody to this final closing session of our two-day conference. When we started this discussion yesterday morning, I think one of the issues that we were particular about is that we end with some very practical suggestions. And we will come to some of those as the discussion goes on in this panel. It is a singularly appropriate moment for this conference to happen because, as all of you know, the conversation about the Indo-Pacific region is beginning to gather momentum. And it's time that we all put our heads together on how to take this forward through regional cooperation in very practical terms. I was unfortunately not able to be here all of yesterday and today, but I have had a look at the summaries of some of the discussions. And one of the things I noticed is that being a very focused discussion, that's very good because we wanted some practical results to come out of this. We have had discussions on all the infrastructure sectors. I noticed land transportation, water transportation, air transportation, power, energy, financing of all that, and also security issues related to cyber security, border security, and so on. So it's been a very focused discussion, and I'm glad that we've had that, and we will have some very practical results to come out of this. On a personal note, I should mention that I'm particularly delighted to be here because the organization I'm presently associated with, namely CUTS, has been at the forefront of generating ideas in the area of regional cooperation. And my former organization, the Asian Development Bank, has also been one of the leading players in this. And I was mentioning to Bipul that actually, as a program officer some 20 years ago, I had started an initiative called the South Asia Sub-Regional Economic Cooperation. It was very difficult at that time because it was not generally appreciated within this sub-region about the benefits of regional cooperation, though it was already being seen quite clearly in the ASEAN region in the adjoining neighborhood. But anyway, we did get started, and I'm delighted to find that today we have about a couple of $1 billion worth of infrastructure projects in the pipeline. So that makes me very happy that that has moved forward and we are where we are today. Now, I'm not going to anticipate what our panelists are going to say or summarize the discussion that have happened. That is what they will be talking about. I'm going to stop now with just one or two remarks, and that is that, what we have focused on today is largely cooperation in the field of infrastructure, regional cooperation in cross-border infrastructure projects and related software. Well, this is one of the most important pillar, but one of the pillars of regional cooperation, and we have to recognize that this is embedded in a larger framework, which also includes free trade cooperation, if not at the global level and the regional level through regional free trade agreements. It also includes cooperation on climate change, because climate change does not recognize borders, and there's a huge amount of externalities or negative externalities that we have to work on that through regional cooperation. And finally, there's the question of financial cooperation. This is something that can be very, very promising. Of course, it's far down the line in South Asia as we are today. Now, this is quite important even in normal times, but you particularly recognize the importance of this for risk pooling when there's a crisis, global crisis. We live in a very volatile world now. A few years ago, we had the global financial crisis just in 2008. 10 years before that, we had the Asian financial crisis in our region. And individual countries always have a better ability to cope with the risks and those shocks when they are operating in a regional cooperation framework. We have seen this in the Southeast Asia region, in particular with the Chiang Mai initiative and so on, and hopefully one day we will get there. Now I'm going to stop here. We have about 45 minutes, of which I have used up some time. So I have mentioned to the panelists, we have about 10 minutes each. We will not have a Q&A session, but that will come on some other occasion, because we just don't have the time for it, and we'd rather listen to our panelists summarize the proceedings that have happened in the last couple of days. So I'm going to follow the order that we have here, and we will start with Mr. Satish Kumar Reddy. Mr. Reddy is presently a consultant with the Asian Development Bank on regional cooperation issues, but he's also a civil servant with the Government of India on secondment presently with the ADB. Mr. Reddy.
Thank you, Chair. Many commendations to CUTS for organizing this conference on regional connectivity. This is an era where connectivity is being talked about in its widest possible dimension, not just physical connectivity or people-to-people connectivity. We also have digital connectivity, financial connectivity, as was just mentioned. So this is a very opportune moment to talk about this. And if you talk about connectivity, even several decades back, you had these land transport corridors which were designed, like the Asian Highway Network and the Trans-Asian Rail Network. So recently we did an exercise from the Asian Development Bank to see what is the state of affairs after so many decades, and we found that there are still large gaps in these networks. By large gaps, I don't mean that nothing exists, but the networks have either large stretches of these networks are in very poor condition, or not really worthy of supporting trade and movement of vehicles, etc. So this is one area where Asian Development Bank is trying to prioritize investments, not just from itself, but also engaging with the countries. And I'm very glad that just the Chair had mentioned about the South Asian Sub-Regional Economic Cooperation, SASEC. In fact, that's the program for which I work, and it has really gained traction, and currently almost about $10 billion worth projects have either been completed or are underway. So we are trying to prioritize the completion of these transport corridors, not just these corridors which were designed some decades back, but also connecting them to the gateways. This is a very diverse region, South Asia. We have landlocked countries, and then we have countries which are islands. So connecting markets to gateways so that they can be efficient logistics is a very key aspect, and this is also another aspect of connectivity that we are focusing on. Last mile connectivity again is very inadequate in the region. One thing is to connect to the markets and also the last mile connectivity across borders. So we are trying to tackle connectivity across its various dimensions. And another area which is very important is the multimodal connectivity. We have cargo for a very efficient logistics chain. We should have an enabling environment for efficient multimodal movement of cargo, and that's also been another area of focus. One major debate when it comes to connectivity is what is the role of borders, because you need connectivity because there are borders as well. One is to make them very elaborate, have first-rate infrastructure, have all regulators, have everybody there. But we are trying to take the other way, is to make borders as less visible as possible. I would like to say invisible, but yeah, that's not going to be, that may not be realistic, but try to make borders as less visible. And by shifting all regulatory processes and infrastructure inland, moving away from the borders so that borders just act as efficient gateways and not as impediments. So in that context, it's very important to marry the infrastructural developments with soft reforms, trade facilitation, logistics facilitation reforms. That's another key area where ADB is working on under the SASEC program, focusing on customs reforms, reforms relating to creation of infrastructure like dry ports and other border facilities. Transport facilitation, some of you would have heard of this breakthrough achievement under BBN, a motor vehicle agreement where vehicles can move from consignor to consignee, from one place in one country to another place in another country and move cargo and people. Unfortunately, it has not been fully operationalized due to some issues with its ratification, but we have done several pilots under that. There have been huge gains in terms of efficiency, reduction in transaction costs, and we really hope that soon the agreement can be implemented in its full dimension. That will really help make the borders again invisible, because currently most of the inefficiencies come about at the borders in terms of time taken, in terms of the cost of trading. And that's what we are trying to reduce. Thirdly, use of technology, ICT. It's for processing or for shipment visibility. I believe there have been sessions earlier in the day which talked about balancing the needs of security and trade facilitation. So that's one thing that we have tried out from the Asian Development Bank, bring in like electronic cargo monitoring systems and take away the intrusive regulatory interface. So this not only helps in facilitating trade, but also provides a very vital shipment visibility to the trade. So one vital aspect of this project was also that it's not just for regulators, but it is also for the trade including transporters, shipping companies, etc., to better able to plan their logistics. All these improvements should have synergy with value chains. They should help proliferate the regional and global value chains, and we are integrating that aspect as well in both infrastructural developments as well as soft reforms. One very interesting areas which everybody is talking about is e-commerce. It's a very powerful tool that can connect people to markets, even small enterprises, tiny enterprises also. So while there are efforts to bring all these entrepreneurs onto online platforms so that they can better access global markets, we also have realized that the regulatory infrastructure is also not geared to tackle this, including whether it's customs, other border related processes, or not, which were made primarily in the past, is not geared to tackle e-commerce. So that's another area of focus which we are currently working on, so that the benefits of e-commerce can really reach everybody and not just big enterprises. So while there are many components happening on connectivity, on trade facilitation, coordination in all these activities is a major gap. Coordination between hard and soft, coordination across borders, and between public and private partnership. I think that's another key aspect which has been discussed in this conference. So achieving all these levers of coordination through appropriate institutional structures is another area which has to be looked at. again, under the SASEC program, we are doing that, but I'm sure it needs a lot more than that. There are a lot of donors and other organizations in the field, and I've realized in the last few years of working with ADB that donor coordination is also a major issue. There are lots of work being done bits and pieces or in silos, which are not really, which don't really give play to the synergies in those areas. And finally, advocacy and outreach, so that the benefits of this are made known to the trade, and the other way also. The issues that are faced by the entrepreneurs and people in this region also are passed on to regulators and suitable solutions devised. So advocacy and outreach is another important area that we are working on. So we hope that with improvements in this, with suitable infrastructure coming, supported by trade facilitation reforms, ICT developments, trying to make borders as less intrusive as possible and moving away all the processes into the countries where it's more convenient for the trade to act. These are some of the activities that we hope will come together to enhance connectivity and to have very efficient connectivity. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. You gave us a very good comprehensive review of how far we've already gone. Said $10 billion projects in the pipeline already. So we are not starting. We are actually in the middle of the road already in terms of regional cooperation where infrastructure is concerned. Before I introduce my next speaker, I want to say that one of the themes that has come out of these 2 days of deliberations is that in this sphere of regional cooperation in this part of the world, we are not going to tolerate any glass ceilings, no room for misogyny and patriarchy. And that it has been emphasized that women must have at least an equal role as men in all the initiatives that comes under this. So we have no other better person to talk to us about this as Madam Damchae Dem. She is the founder and chief executive officer of the Bhutan Association of Women Entrepreneurs. As she was telling us earlier, she has been, led some of the startups in the region, and today she's going to talk to us about, as she says, she is now giving back to society from everything she's got from it. Madam Dam, please.
First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the organizers for this wonderful opportunity for hosting us here in New Delhi. And I must say that this has been one of the most empowering conferences where knowledge has been shared and wisdom gained. Next time round, though, I hope we will have stronger women representation to bring harmony to the room. My perspective has doggedly been women-oriented. Therefore, I would like to once again reiterate that while there are some strong women out there, often stronger than their male counterparts, the majority still need hand-holding, mentoring, and help going forward. Not because we are weak, but because we have not been effectively challenged nor equipped. Therefore, it is imperative that due regard be given to our needs and solutions going forward. Having said that, I would like to stress upon digitization, which is key, to these few days, the last 2 days of deliberation. What has really stood out, and what is in fact really an equalizer and a solution to what we women need, is digitization. Because as somebody mentioned, I'm sorry I can't remember the names, but somebody mentioned that we can do business from our homes. It doesn't need for a woman to go out of the boundaries of her safe environment. She can work from her home. And it really gives, it's really empowering. That is something that I would really like to acknowledge here. And secondly, I would like to also talk about not the branding process as much as being able to identify, being able to identify a product. Because this world is made up of products and, people trying to advertise one better than the other, one trying to say that outsmart each other. But at the end of the day, a huge chunk of people are in the grassroots. These are the people that need representation. And as I mentioned earlier, the thing that is lacking is that we lack networking. And once that networking comes through digitization, the only thing that then sort of, is a barrier, is something that challenges us, is recognition of the product. And to this effect, I have come out with something, I can't think of a better name, more appropriate name, so I have named it the fountain effect. Now, what the fountain effect does, it is about networking amongst primary producers. And I'm talking from the Bhutanese perspective. I would imagine that if this could be used elsewhere, it would be a very humble contribution from myself, as you have mentioned about, how somebody wants to give back to society for everything that, we have got. We need to really count our blessings, each of us, to be grateful for the reason why we are all here. So this is the reason why I feel that, is a humble contribution. It's coming up with something called the fountain effect. So what happens in the fountain effect is the primary producers, they aggregate their raw material supply to the entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur, in turn, is usually a rural entrepreneur. That's the way I have worked at it. Is this rural entrepreneur then makes the product, and from that, the profits, a part of the profits is plowed back to the primary producers. So in effect, the primary producers are getting paid twice. Once at market value, and the other one is to get an opportunity from the dividends. So that way, what happens is they get more encouraged. They feel more encouraged to work. Just now what's happening, especially back home, where, we are mostly a matriarchal society, Bhutan, and the property rights usually goes to the girl child. But then this property is usually scattered, unproductive, and because of lack of network, marketing networks, etc., it's a life of drudgery. And women grow old before their time. And all this can change. And what is the solution to this change? What do we need for this change? Digitization and the fountain effect. If these two can be given to us, I can assure you, Bhutan will be very happy to, sort of take up the challenge to prove that some things are doable. But let me continue here. Digitization is the biggest and most effective equalizer. It must be at the forefront, if indeed we are serious about women empowerment, and not simply going around making convenient noises. Let us not waste precious time talking. Life is fleeting. Find the purpose of our lives and help others find theirs. Like one big family, let us together walk the path, built on mutual respect, trust, and hope, to an inclusive, sustainable future where all our homes are blessed with peace, prosperity, and happiness. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. That was a very eloquent way of putting across your powerful messages. So far all of us have been speaking who are from the region, but we also have some non-regional partners who have been very helpful to us, including the United States, Japan, Australia, the United Kingdom, and others. And one of the most supportive has been the United States. So I'm delighted to introduce our speaker from the State Department, Mr. David Ranz.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for our Regional Connectivity Conference. I want to take a moment again to thank our partners, CUTS International, FICI, and the East-West Center for all of their hard work in putting together this conference. We have benefited from the expertise and experience of an extraordinary range of speakers from throughout the region and beyond. And I want to express my appreciation to all of them, all of you as well, for sharing your time and your wisdom with us. The Indian Ocean region is one of the most dynamic in the world. Nearly half the world's 90,000 commercial vessels and 2/3 of the globe's oil travels through its sea lanes. The region boasts some of the fastest growing economies on Earth and is home to 1/4 of the globe's population. Our commitment to this region is rooted in the U.S. identity as an Indo-Pacific nation and the myriad cultural, social, and political ties between our peoples. We are gratified to be a part of this remarkable growth story. Our Indo-Pacific strategy, which values strong economic growth, a commitment to collective security, and an adherence to global norms, is designed to better align U.S. resources to support your efforts. As Ambassador Jester mentioned in his remarks yesterday, the U.S. has been an active supporter of the prosperity of this region for decades. With this new whole-of-government strategy, which has been endorsed by President Trump, we are building on past successes and expanding our commitment. In his remarks at the opening plenary yesterday, Ambassador Jester also highlighted the many ways the U.S. has been fostering better regional connectivity and economic growth in South Asia. As we close this conference, I'd like to focus on our future efforts. At the Indo-Pacific Business Forum in July, Secretary Pompeo announced $113 million in funding for a suite of initiatives in the areas of digital economy, infrastructure, and energy. As he said in his remarks at that forum, these funds represent just a down payment on a new era in U.S. economic commitment to peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region. The first of these programs, the Digital Connectivity and Cybersecurity Partnerships, aims to provide greater digital access to underserved populations, advance an open internet based on multi-stakeholder governance, and promote strong cybersecurity practices. The second, the Infrastructure Transaction and Assistance Network, or ITAN, is designed to harness the technical assistance and financing tools of the U.S. government to more quickly and robustly respond to the critical infrastructure needs of the region. And third, Asia Edge, which stands for Enhancing Development and Growth Through Energy, focuses on expanding commercial investment opportunities in the energy sector, promoting universal access to affordable and reliable energy sources, and advancing market-based reforms to maximize international energy trade. All of these programs are also specifically designed to draw in additional private sector investment, turning $113 million in U.S. government funds into potentially billions of dollars worth of private sector deals. The most significant addition to the U.S. government's arsenal of infrastructure investment tools is the passage of the BUILD Act, which creates a new U.S. International Development Finance Corporation. This new institution will increase our current overseas private investment corporation's lending limit from $29 to $60 billion, unlocking $31 billion in additional funding towards political risk insurance and loans. The new corporation will also be able to make equity investment and fund feasibility studies on potential investments, making it even easier to collaborate with partner finance institutions. It is crucial that the projects we finance adhere to the best value principles and that governments pursue open and transparent procurement processes. We promote the use of best value standards not to advantage U.S. companies, but because they reflect globally recognized best practices in procuring infrastructure that not only fits a government's budget, but which will last for generations to come. By advertising procurement opportunities and conducting tenders in an open, transparent way, countries can attract the widest possible pool of applicants. If companies cannot meet the quality standards set forth, it is not exclusionary. It is simply a reflection that what they are offering is not a good match with your country's needs. And companies meeting these standards are not all from developed countries. India, in particular, has accomplished multinational firms easily able to comply with the best international practices. Infrastructure, while critical, is insufficient to unlock the region's immense potential. Meaningful reforms that encourage regional integration are critical to enhancing local as well as international trade. As remarked upon many times during this conference, South Asia is one of the least integrated regions of the world. In contrast, Southeast Asia regularly pursues regional cooperation through ASEAN and in smaller multilateral configurations. The World Bank estimates that removing barriers and streamlining customs procedures would nearly quadruple interregional trade in South Asia, from $28 billion to $100 billion. Governments know what they need to do to reform. It is the political will that is too often lacking. And just as organizations such as ASEAN are central to regional cohesion and interconnectivity in Southeast Asia, strengthening regional institutions that include South Asia can also begin to shape a regional consensus. One such regional institution is the Indian Ocean Rim Association, IORA, which the United States has supported as a formal dialogue partner since 2012. While we meet here in Delhi, my colleague Tom Vaida is attending the IORA Council of Ministers meeting in South Africa. We are committed to deepening our support for IORA as the institution that ties the Indian Ocean region together, notably its efforts to promote blue economy initiatives, maritime security, and women's economic empowerment, all of which build on U.S. goals for the Indo-Pacific region. This year, as a measure of our growing support, we are providing our first ever monetary contribution to IORA in support of its action plan to sustain and grow women's small and medium businesses, with a focus on promising sectors IORA has identified, such as coastal tourism, disaster risk management, fisheries, aquaculture, ports management, and shipping. To build IORA's capabilities, these efforts will draw on research recommendations and experience gathered by IORA members and partners working together. We will also support IORA's efforts to network women's businesses with private and public sector partners as a way to help them gain access to corporate supply chains. Our efforts include helping to design a new women's business forum, the focal point for IORA's efforts to advance women's economic inclusion. It's no accident that we have focused on women's economic empowerment for our first monetary contribution. According to the UN, full women's economic participation in the Indo-Pacific region would lead to $4.5 trillion in additional GDP growth annually. In India alone, the boost would add additional 18% per year to the country's GDP. In our session yesterday on women's economic empowerment, Salima Ahmed, the president of the Bangladesh Women's Chamber of Commerce and Industry, was exactly right when she said that women already have the capacity to contribute and succeed, but are not given opportunities to participate. Gender diversity enriches and strengthens every organization. Women's voices need to be heard, not only on the topic of women's empowerment, but on every topic. I therefore want to issue a challenge to the men in the room today to ask yourselves how your organizations are providing mentoring and opportunities for women to advance and take on senior roles. I want to challenge you to hire more women, support their professional development, and even step aside to let women lead. Women have done their part to show they are qualified and capable. The men now must do their part and support their rise. Ms. Ahmed and several other participants also highlighted the lack of gender diversity on the panels of this conference. This is a rampant problem. We men can be allies in the effort to promote gender diversity by insisting, as a condition of participating in a panel discussion, that it be gender diverse. I call on the men in this room today to join me in making that pledge in the future. Working with key partners is also crucial to support progress towards greater regional connectivity. On September 28th, for example, President Trump and Prime Minister Abe announced a variety of cooperative bilateral projects. In Bangladesh, the United States and Japan are assisting Bangladesh to construct and improve cross-border road networks and boost the efficiency of inland ports. On the private sector side, Japan's Mitsubishi and GE of the United States have signed a memorandum of understanding to develop an LNG project in Bangladesh worth $5.7 billion, further supporting Bangladesh's energy needs. To further enhance our ability to work together, the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, and OPIC signed a memorandum of understanding to provide a framework for co-financing options for private companies' investments in the developing countries in the Pacific region. We look forward to supporting the operationalization of this MOU with key projects in South Asia. India is also playing a key role in realizing the $500 million Millennium Challenge Corporation compact with Nepal, the single largest U.S. grant to Nepal in our 72 years of cooperation. This compact will focus on road maintenance, as well as building crucial electricity transmission lines, substations, and a second cross-border transmission line with India. This second cross-border transmission line will allow the two countries to more easily balance their energy needs, as well as contribute to greater energy security for the whole of South Asia, as work continues to create a truly regional power trade market. We look forward to the conclusion of negotiations between India and Nepal so we can break ground on this ambitious project. In closing, I want to thank you all again for your participation in this conference. One of the most important outcomes is to create connections amongst experts to develop innovative programs and initiatives to tackle the connectivity challenges of South Asia. I encourage you to keep in touch with each other and with us as we work together to support this region's development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ranz, for walking us through the many detailed ways in which the United States has been helping us to promote regional cooperation. For those of us from within the region who are working in this area, it is really very encouraging to see how some of our non-regional partners like the United States are deeply invested in promoting regional cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region. Thank you very much. It's my very pleasant duty now to call upon Vipul Chatterjee to give us a vote of thanks. Mr. Chatterjee is the Executive Director of CUTS International. Vipul.
Thank you, Chair. This conference is coming to an end, and my job is to provide or place a more formal vote of thanks. My intention is not to summarize what we have discussed over the last 2 days, but one thing which I would like to emphasize or underline is that one of the intentions of our work, this particular conference and the related work which we are doing with support from the State Department, is to have better understanding of various initiatives which are happening around this region from various players, various agencies, including United States, Japan, Asian Development Bank, World Bank, and others, and then to generate more and more good examples where cooperation is happening, future cooperation is possible, and things like that. So I think to a large extent, when we prepare the report, particularly the outcome document of this event, I think we have achieved that objective to a large extent, if not fully. So coming to a more formal vote of thanks, I will not take much time because it's already almost 6 o'clock. Let me first of all begin by thanking the US State Department for the support. It's not just the monetary support which we have received from you, but also the intellectual support, the knowledge support, the moral support. And here I would like to particularly mention a few names from whom we have received regular, continuous support over the last few months. Jeff Ficken, Amy Egelberger from Washington, Jeffrey Wessel and his colleagues from New Delhi, Alex Johnson and his colleagues from Dhaka Post, Eduardo Garcia and his colleagues from your Colombo Post, David Talach and his colleagues from your Kathmandu Post. And of course, there are many others from the US State Department, from Washington, from Delhi, from Colombo, Dhaka, and other places who have helped us in shaping it and executing it. Finally, let me also thank my colleagues, but before that, let me thank our partners. EWC, East West Center, Satul Limai and his colleagues who are continuing supporting us, including in post-event activities, which we are going to discuss tomorrow morning, and Gautam Ghosh and his colleagues from FICCI, who has provided a lot of support in organizing this event. And finally, my colleagues from CUTS and from CUTS Institute for Regulation and Competition. I know that all of you have worked hard for the last several days, several months in some cases, and of course, over the last 2 days. I know that some of you were awake till 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning to complete certain activities. So I thank all of them. I'm not taking any individual names because I may forget to take some names and I may take some other names. But I thank all of them from the deepest part of my heart for your contribution, for your hard work and diligent work. So with this, let me also finally thank all of you for your participation, not just you, those who are present in the room right now, but over the last 2 days, all of you who have participated, including from our foreign ministry, from other ministries, other countries, governments, private sector, other agencies, civil society organizations. I thank all of them. So let me propose to give a big round of applause to all of them. Thank you.
So, conference is now over. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, panelists. May I now request the Deputy Executive Director of CUTS International, Mr. Uday S. Mehta, to present a token of appreciation from CUTS International to the panelists in this session. With this, we declare the conference closed. We look forward for future meetings. We would be reaching out on one-to-one basis with many of you. Have a nice weekend, coming up weekend, and we also wish you a prosperous Diwali.